All right, good afternoon and welcome to today's webinar on child nutrition updates and reminders for April 2025. My name is Nick Lebrecht and I'm the child nutrition supervisor here at the department. This webinar is being recorded and will be posted on our website along with the slides. During the webinar, if you have any questions, please put those questions in the Q&A box, not the chat box. Q&A box, not the chat box. Thank you. All right, let's get started. This is today's agenda. We'll talk about some updates and reminders, briefly touch on some upcoming events, and then we'll dive into the training topic, which this month is updates to school nutrition standards for school year 26-27. And then we'll have a little bit of question and answer. So to kick things off with updates and reminders, we are continuing work with the Maine AG's office in regards to the ongoing legal actions between the Maine Department of Education and USDA. We are still currently operating under a TRO, a temporary restraining order, that runs through May 9th. The next steps for the department and the AG's office is to apply for a preliminary injunction, which is ongoing. Maine DOE continues to evaluate the situation and remains committed to sharing updates and guidance as frequently and regularly as the situation allows. In the meantime, child nutrition directors are encouraged to continue with operations based on current rules and regulations to the best of their abilities. If you have any questions, you can contact us. Continuing with some updates and reminders, the summer program, Sun Meals as it's now known, application is open. If you're currently working through your application, if you can get it to us as soon as you possibly can, we are going through the process of getting those approved. And then Sunbucks is back this summer. Most children will be automatically enrolled if they receive SNAP, FedPer, TANF, Maine Care, and are identified as foster, homeless, or migrant. Benefits are issued to existing EBT Pine Tree cards, as they're known. New cards will be issued if needed, and you can request a replacement card by calling the 1-800 number that will be posted on the DHHS website for Sunbucks. There is a manual application, so families that haven't received automatic enrollment letters by mid-June will need to apply through the manual application process. Children must attend a school that offers the National School Lunch or Breakfast Program and meet the free or reduced price meal criteria. For our CEP and Provision 2 schools, we do encourage applications for students not already receiving SNAP, FedPer, TANF, or Maine Care, but who qualify for free reduced meals. So if you are one of those type of schools, if you can encourage that would be great. And then overall, help spread the word. Encourage families to update their addresses with OFI and watch for notification letters, new cards, or benefit loads in June. There will be flyers and direct families too. And DHHS's Sunbucks webpage is operating. And if anybody has any questions, they can call OFI and select option 5 for more information. So if you have any questions that come to you about Sunbucks, please direct them to the DHHS Sunbucks webpage for all the information they need. And continuing with updates and reminders, a couple of webinars coming up in the month of May. We have our Buy American webinar, which I'll touch on briefly in this presentation. But there'll be a lot more information about Buy American on May 19th at 1:30 p.m. And then our annual financial report webinar, please join us on the 22nd of May at 1:30 p.m. for that. And great news, it's School Lunch Hero Day coming up for this Friday, May 2nd. So that's awesome news to end our updates and reminders on. And we have one upcoming event. Our local foods training with Maine Coast Fishermen's Association is being held on May 7th, 1 week from today, down here in our culinary classroom in Augusta, Maine. That is from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. That's our only upcoming event. All right, so we're going to dive into our training topics. And so the training topic this month is School Nutrition Standards for school year 2026. And we will touch upon some aspects of beyond 2026 as well. So let's dive right in. So school meals are one of, if not the healthiest place for students are eating, and that's because the meals you plan are based on strict standards. So the changes that went into effect this year and those planned for next year are designed to make school meals even healthier. Of course, we all know it's important to balance this with student preferences as well because we want them to consume what we're serving. The meal components you serve are part of a meal pattern, which is based on their dietary guidelines. So as the dietary guidelines are updated and changed, so must our nutrition standards. So before we jump into the changes for 2026, I'd like to start with a review of the menu planning flexibilities for this previous year, some of which will continue to run into next year. These flexibilities took effect on July 1st, 2024. So you've been operating in this realm, and we're going to continue with some of these aspects into 2025 and beyond. So we have breakfast. Schools may offer grains, meat alternate, or a combination of both. This removes the requirement for schools to offer 1 ounce equivalent of grains each day at school breakfast. And then for school year 2024-25, only schools may offer vegetables in place of fruits at breakfast with no subgroup variety requirements. And then continuing on 2025 changes, it allowed nuts and seeds to credit for full meat alternate components in the child nutrition programs and meals. And there was a terminology change for legumes, beans, and peas. Vegetable subgroup will be referred to as beans, peas, and lentils. We also allowed schools to count beans, peas, and lentils offered as a meat alternate at school lunch towards a weekly beans, peas, and lentils vegetable subgroup requirement. Beans, peas, and lentils offered as a meat alternate would not count towards a daily or weekly vegetable meal component requirements. So these are the 2025 ones that are still running. In addition to that, Buy American, I told you I was going to talk about it, and I am. We are in a limited exception, codifies limited circumstances for non-domestic food purchases. If the product is listed on the FAR, Federal Acquisitions Regulations, not available articles list, or is not produced or manufactured in the United States in sufficient or reasonable available quantities to satisfy quality, or if the competitive bids that you guys are doing reveal the cost of a U.S. product to be significantly higher than the non-domestic product. These are the areas that you would have limited exceptions. This ready available list of exemptions items is expected to reduce administrative burden and associated with document exceptions. More on Buy American, the cap on non-domestic purchases. You guys have probably heard about this. It's a gradual phase-in to a 5% cap of non-domestic commercial food purchases beginning in school year 25-26, which the cap will be at 10%. And then in 28 to 29, will reduce to 8%. And then finally in 31-32, the cap will be at the 5% threshold that they're trying to get to. State agencies will have a discretion to allow an accommodation for temporary relief from this requirement. There will be a form, and you will hear more about this in the webinar on May 19th. So I encourage you to please tune into that webinar. All right, so moving ahead into 25-26, we'll talk about some of these standards that are updating this year. So the added sugars limit in school year 25-26, we are implementing a product-based limits for higher sugar items like breakfast cereals, yogurts, and flavored milks. This is in preparation for school year 27-28, when the weekly limits must be maintained under less than 10% of the total calories from added sugars for both lunch and breakfast programs. And then we have our milk options. Schools can continue to offer flavored low-fat milk, 1%, and fat-free milk to K through 12 students. However, it is important to note that flavored milk must comply with the new added sugar limits starting in school year 25-26. Additionally, the whole grains requirement is going to continue. So effective school year 25-26, at least 80% of grains offered weekly must be whole grain rich. There was a definition added of whole grain rich that clarified the product containing 50% more whole grains with any of the remaining grains being enriched. So this is an item that's going to continue into next year. And then after school snacks, there was a change to this for school year 25-26. It aligns NSLP after school snack meal pattern requirements for K-12 with the CACFP snack meal pattern requirements. And then we have a meal modification change. In addition to state licensed healthcare professionals, changes also permit registered dietitians that are treating the students to write medical statements to request meal modifications on the behalf of the said students with disabilities in school for the school meal programs. And then a little bit of a jump ahead here in 27-28, just to get it on your radar. It was listed in the changes for this year and next year. So sodium reduction targets implemented in 27-28, lunch, 15% reduction from the current limits. Grades K through 5, less than 935 milligrams, 6 through 8, 1,035 milligrams, and 9 through 12, 1,080 milligrams. And for breakfast, it's a 10% reduction from the current limits. That's grades K through 5, 485 milligrams, 6 through 8, 535 milligrams, and 9 through 12, 570 milligrams. And the current targets 1A from the transitional final rule is a working standards until 27-28. So it's the status quo until 27-28 when these are going to be implemented. So just to recap a little bit of the overview of the timeline, because we did talk about a couple of year ranges here. So in 25-26, begin the implementation of product-based added sugar limits and enforce the whole grain rich requirements, and then apply for Buy American cap on non-domestic food purchases. And then in 27-28, implementation of those weekly added sugar limits and the enforcement of the sodium reduction targets. And I want to encourage you to go to the USDA's website concerning these standards to get as much detail as you possibly can moving forward. All right, and that is all the updates we have. So at this time, I'll open it up for any questions that were received.
None at the moment, but we'll get a minute. There are no questions.
Wonderful. I must have been very, very thorough. I appreciate your time, everybody, and please check out the slideshow when it's posted. Thank you.